I never thought I'd end up here, honestly. I always believed in the idea of sticking it out, working through problems, trusting that love could survive anything. But life has a way of throwing punches you don't see coming, and the one that knocked me flat was discovering my wife, Lisa, was cheating on me. And not just with some random guy, with my dialysis technician of all people. I know, it sounds like some soap opera plot, but it's my reality, and I'm still trying to process it all. We've been married for 8 years. When everything started, Lisa seemed perfect, smart, funny, a little bitchy at times, but in a way that I found endearing. We had a decent life, nothing extravagant but stable. She was the kind of woman who'd volunteer at the local shelter, go out of her way to be helpful, and still somehow manage to look stunning doing it. I was proud of her, and I thought we had a good thing going. But then, about 2 months ago, I started noticing some strange things. Small stuff at first. She'd come home late after her volunteer shifts, claiming she was helping out at the shelter, but her stories started to sound vague, inconsistent. Sometimes she'd say she was just running errands, but her phone kept ringing at odd hours, and she was oddly secretive about her texts. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I let it go. The real wake-up call came when I was feeling particularly weak from my dialysis treatments. My health has been declining lately, so I was staying home more, resting. One day, I decided to check the security footage from the clinic, something I'd never done before, but I was desperate for answers. I'd noticed she was volunteering during my treatments, always at the same times, and it felt suspicious. I figured, what the hell, I'd look for any odd activity. Maybe I was paranoid, but it gave me a strange feeling in my gut. What I saw chilled me to the bone. There was Lisa, sneaking into the clinic during my dialysis sessions, not just volunteering but spending a lot of time there. I recognized the technician, Mark, a guy I knew casually from around town, but I'd never thought much about him. But then I saw them together. Not just talking, but leaning in close, whispering, touching her arm a little too casually. The footage clearly showed them kissing in the back room. I watched it twice, then 3 times, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with a guy whose job I'd trusted to keep me alive. It was a punch to the stomach, and I felt my world tilt. I'd always prided myself on honesty and loyalty, and here I was, watching the woman I'd trusted betray me with someone I had no reason to suspect. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was furious, but at the same time hurt. How long had this been going on? How many times had I sat there, fragile and exhausted, while she was out with him, sharing her body with someone else? I kept replaying the footage, trying to catch additional clues, but mostly I just sat there numb. For a few days after that, I was in shock. I'd go from feeling angry to feeling like I'd been punched in the gut, then back again. I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I looked at her, I saw the lies behind her eyes, the deception she'd been hiding. And the worst part, I'd never suspected a thing. She'd been lying to my face, all while she was sneaking off to kiss some guy during my vulnerable hours. I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep living in this lie, not knowing what was real anymore. But I also knew she'd deny everything, call me crazy, or worse, spin some bullshit story to make me doubt myself. Still, I couldn't just let it slide. I had to hear her explanation, even if I already knew deep down that the truth was staring me in the face. The question was, how would she spin it? Would she be honest, or would she double down on her lies? That's where I am now. Sitting here trying to figure out what to do next, knowing that my entire life might be changing forever. Because once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. And once you know the truth, it's a hell of a lot harder to pretend everything's okay. The confrontation didn't happen right away. Honestly, I wasn't in any rush. I needed to gather my thoughts, figure out what I wanted to say, or even if I wanted to say anything at all. I spent a few days just watching her, trying to catch her in more lies or see if she slipped up somehow. But she was good, too good. She kept up the act, acting innocent, acting busy, acting like I was just imagining things. That made me angrier. How could someone lie so effortlessly? How could she look me in the eye and pretend everything was normal? One evening, I finally decided I couldn't hold back any longer. I was done pretending I didn't know. I sat her down in the living room, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. She looked up at me, all fake concern and that bitchy little smirk she always wore when she thought she was getting away with something. I could see it in her eyes. She knew she'd been caught, but she still wanted to play the innocent victim. "So Lisa," I started, voice trembling. "Care to explain what I saw on the security footage?" She blinked at me, her smile faltering just a bit. She tried to keep her tone light, dismissive even. "What are you talking about? You're overthinking this. I was just volunteering at the shelter. Maybe you're seeing things." I cut her off. "No, Lisa, I saw you kissing Mark, my dialysis technician, in the back room during my treatment. How could you do that? How long has this been going on?" Her face twisted with annoyance. "Oh, come on, you're paranoid. You're always so damn emotional. You think I have time for some stupid affair. I volunteer because I care. You're just accusing me of nonsense because you're sick and vulnerable." That was her go-to line, always the victim, always the innocent woman. She denied everything, even when I laid out the footage and the timestamps. Said it was all a mistake, that I was imagining things, or that I was just jealous because I was sick. That's when I really felt the boiling anger. Not just at her betrayal, but at how she was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt my own senses. I told her I wasn't going to be played anymore, that I'd seen enough. Her excuses sounded hollow, like she'd rehearsed this stupid act 100 times. The more she talked, the more I realized she was trying to keep everything under control, act like the victim, like I was the one trying to ruin her life. And honestly, that made me feel sick. Because I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. The thing about betrayal like this is it hits you in layers. First shock, then anger, then sadness. I felt all of it, swirling inside me, and I didn't know how to process it. I'd always believed in honesty, loyalty, that marriage meant something. And here I was, feeling like a fool, realizing she'd been lying to my face while I was fighting for my life. I told her I needed some space, that I couldn't be around her right now. She looked annoyed, annoyed that I was calling her out in front of her friends, annoyed that I was questioning her integrity. But honestly, I didn't care what she thought. I was done. Done with her lies, her bullshit, her manipulations. The next few days felt like a blur. I stayed mostly in my room trying to process everything. The thing that kept echoing in my mind was how she'd looked in that footage, so casual, so unaffected. Like she didn't care that she was destroying us, destroying everything we'd built. And I felt helpless, betrayed, and more alone than I ever had before. I kept asking myself, was I just blind? How did I miss all the signs? How could someone I loved so much turn out to be this cold, selfish person? The deeper I looked into her eyes, the more I saw a stranger. Someone who lied so convincingly I almost believed her at times. It was humiliating, humiliating to realize I'd given her my trust and she'd thrown it all away for some affair with a guy who was supposed to be helping me stay alive. I knew I'd never look at her the same way again, and I knew the road ahead was going to be long and messy. But the first step was finally out of denial. I'd seen enough to know the truth. Now, I just had to figure out what I was going to do about it. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the footage, the way Lisa's face looked when she lied, the way Mark's hands had touched her like he owned her. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to the betrayal right in front of me. I thought about the countless times I'd been so vulnerable, so exhausted from dialysis, and I wondered if she had been out with him, sharing some secret sex or whatever sick thing they had going on. It made me feel sick just thinking about it. The worst part was feeling helpless. I mean, I couldn't exactly confront her again without risking something worse. I thought about going to the clinic, demanding answers, but what would that even accomplish? I already knew the truth. She'd been cheating on me, using her volunteer shifts as cover. But I needed proof beyond the footage. I needed something concrete, something to make her realize I wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. In the days that followed, I started plotting my next move. I knew I had to be strategic. I remembered hearing about some of the clinic staff's routines, the times Mark would be there, the places they'd hide during the sessions. I decided to dig a little deeper, to see if I could find anything that backed up what I'd seen on the tape. I didn't want to go in guns blazing, but I needed leverage, some kind of undeniable proof. One afternoon, I managed to get my hands on her phone, which she'd left on the kitchen table while she ran to the grocery store. I knew I shouldn't be snooping, but I couldn't help myself. I didn't expect much, maybe some innocent texts, some social media messages, but what I found knocked the wind out of me again. Her messages with Mark weren't just friendly, they were flirtatious, full of suggestive emojis, plans to meet outside of work, and even explicit talk about what they did last time. I saw enough to confirm what I'd already suspected. This wasn't just a fling, it was something she was actively hiding from me behind my back while I was fighting for my life. It hit me hard. Anger, a lot of anger, the kind that makes your hands shake. How could she do this? How could she betray me like that? I realized I'd been nothing but a good husband, supporting her, loving her, trusting her, and she'd been screwing around with my technician during my treatments. It was a blow I didn't know how to recover from. I knew I had to be careful. Confronting her again was risky. She'd deny everything, probably lie her way out of it. That's when I decided I'd take my time, gather more evidence, and plan my next move. I also started thinking about what I'd do if I decided to leave. Could I even stay with someone who'd do this to me? Could I forgive her? The answer was no, not anymore. My trust was shattered beyond repair. The next day I started looking into my options. I could see a lawyer, maybe get a separation or even divorce. I didn't want her to get away with this without consequences. I wanted her to see that her lies and her cheating had consequences. And Mark, I wanted him to realize that I wasn't someone to mess with either. I was angry enough to make sure she paid for what she'd done, but I also knew I had to keep my composure. I couldn't let my emotions control me completely. Not yet anyway. It was one of those moments where you feel like your entire world is collapsing. I'd always believed in honesty, faithfulness, the idea that marriage was forever. Turns out that was all just a lie I told myself. Because if Lisa was capable of this, what else was she capable of? I didn't want to be a victim anymore. I wanted to be the one in control, even if I felt like I was falling apart inside. And so, I started planning my next steps. I knew I'd confront her again, but not just with words. I needed her to understand that I wasn't going to let her manipulate or lie her way out of this. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I'd seen the truth, and now I had to decide how I was going to live with it. The day finally came when I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to see her, face her, and get some answers that I already knew the truth of but still needed to hear from her mouth. I told her I wanted to talk, just her and me. And she pretended to be surprised, acting like I was just overreacting again, but I wasn't having any of that. She came home, all fake concern, trying to keep her cool, but I could see her eyes flickering with guilt. That was enough for me. I sat her down in the living room. She looked at me with that smug, bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was winning. I could tell she was trying to keep her composure, play the innocent victim, but I wasn't buying it. I played the footage on my phone, letting her see it with her own eyes. Her face froze. Her eyes widened just a little, and I could see her trying to come up with some bullshit excuse, some way to spin it, but I didn't give her the chance. "So Lisa," I said, voice cold, "tell me what the hell this is. You've been screwing my technician Mark during my dialysis treatments. While I was laying there getting weaker, you were with him. How long has this been going on?" She blinked rapidly, trying to avoid eye contact. Her voice wavered as she lied. "It's not what you think. I was just talking to him. It's nothing serious. You're overreacting. You're just sick and paranoid." I cut her off, furious now. "Paranoid? Are you kidding me? I saw you kissing him. I saw the way you were touching each other. This isn't some innocent conversation. You've been lying to my face, using my sickness as an excuse to cheat. How long has this been going on?" Her face turned red with anger now, and she started to get defensive. "You don't understand. I was just helping him out. He's going through a rough patch. He's been under a lot of stress. I didn't think it was a big deal. I'm still the same person you married." I couldn't believe her lies. She was so quick to dismiss everything, to make herself the victim. I told her I knew about the explicit texts on her phone and that I'd seen enough. That's when she started to get really nasty, throwing blame at me, saying I was just sick, that I was imagining things, that I was a terrible husband who didn't appreciate her. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her I wanted her out of my house, that I didn't want to see her stupid face or hear her lies again. The ironic part, she doubled down, claiming she was doing it for us, saying Mark was just a temporary distraction and that she didn't mean for it to happen. She insisted it was just sex, that she hadn't loved him, that it was all just a mistake. That's when I felt the deep, searing disappointment. How could she make it sound so trivial? Like her betrayal was just some stupid mistake instead of what it really was, a full-blown affair during my most vulnerable times. I told her I was done with her lies, that I wasn't going to be her punching bag anymore. I told her she could leave that day. I wanted her gone, and I wanted her to understand just how much she'd hurt me. I stood up, told her to pack her things, and when she started crying, I didn't feel a shred of sympathy. I'd heard enough. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with my life, she'd thrown all that away for a fling with my technician. Watching her leave was like watching my world fall apart. I felt sick, empty, betrayed, but also somehow relieved. I'd finally faced the truth. I'd confronted her lies head-on, and even if it hurt like hell, I knew I couldn't go back. I'd lost someone I thought was my partner, but I was also finally free from the illusion of a perfect marriage. That night, I stayed up feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. I kept remembering the good times, the promises we made, the plans for the future, and how they'd all been shattered by her selfishness. I knew it was going to be a long road to heal, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I'd broken the silence, shaken everything up, and now I had to figure out what life looked like without her. And honestly, I was scared. But I also knew I deserved better. I deserved someone who wouldn't betray me when I was at my weakest. The pain of betrayal stings, no doubt about it, but I also knew I'd come out the other side. I had to, because I can't keep living in a lie. The truth is out. And now I just have to deal with the aftermath. The days following her departure were the hardest I've ever gone through. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, a mixture of relief and heartbreak that was hard to put into words. I'd finally confronted the truth, but that didn't mean I felt better. If anything, I was worse. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smug face, denying everything, trying to manipulate me one last time. Every moment I wasn't distracted, her betrayal haunted me. It was like I'd been punched in the gut repeatedly. I also had to face the reality of my situation, my health. The betrayal hit me hard emotionally, but I knew I couldn't let it destroy me physically too. I had been through so much with my kidney failure, relying on dialysis 3 times a week, fighting to stay alive. That part of my life had always been a battle, but I'd always tried to keep a sense of hope, of strength. And now I had a chance to start over, to rebuild my life without her. I started by getting some legal advice. It was clear I needed to separate, get a divorce, and protect myself financially. The idea of her walking away with anything after what she did made my stomach turn, but I knew I had to be smart. I also wanted to make sure she couldn't pull any bullshit again, so I looked into changing locks, securing my finances, and even setting some boundaries I never thought I'd need to consider. I was determined not to let her betrayal destroy everything I'd fought for. At the same time, I found myself questioning whether I should try to salvage the marriage or cut my losses entirely. Honestly, the thought of trying to rebuild something with her now seemed impossible. Trust was gone, shattered like glass. I couldn't see a way back from this, not after seeing her kiss mark in that footage, not after reading those explicit texts. It was clear she didn't care about me enough to stop, and that realization made me feel so empty, so discarded. I also reached out to some friends for support. They were furious on my behalf, some even angry at her for hurting me so badly. Having people to talk to was a relief, even if I felt embarrassed admitting how deep my pain went. One thing I realized through all of this is that I'd been holding in a lot of anger and sadness. Suppressing it wasn't helping. I needed to confront my feelings, process the betrayal, and figure out what I wanted my future to look like. One night, I finally sat down and reflected on everything. I remembered the good times, the laughter, the trips, the promises, and then the betrayal that tore all of that apart. I thought about how I had always been loyal, how I had supported her through her volunteer work, her dreams, her ambitions. And for what? To have her throw it all away for some affair, for a quick sex partner. That realization made me bitter but also determined. I deserved better than someone who would betray me like that. I knew I couldn't change what she did, but I could change how I responded. I decided I wouldn't let her define me. I would take back control of my life, focus on healing both physically and emotionally. I started going to therapy, talking through all the pain, anger, and disappointment. It helped. It gave me some clarity. I also promised myself I wouldn't rush into anything. I needed time to grieve, to heal, and to figure out what was next. The truth is, I don't know what the future holds. I know I'll probably carry this pain with me for a while. But I also know I won't let it destroy me. I've been through so much with my health, and I've always fought to keep going. This betrayal was a blow, but it made me realize I'm stronger than I thought. I've got to rebuild my trust in myself and maybe someday trust again in others. But for now, I just want to focus on getting through each day, one step at a time. And that's what I plan to do. Looking back now, I realize how much I've learned from all of this, even if it's been a brutal lesson. Trust is fragile, and betrayal can cut deeper than almost anything else. But I also learned that even when your world feels shattered, you can find a way to pick up the pieces and move forward. The pain of losing someone you loved so much doesn't disappear overnight, but over time it becomes a part of your story, a reminder that you survived and you're still here. I've come to understand that I can't control other people's choices, their lies, or their betrayals. I can only control how I respond. My health is still fragile, but I've become more aware of my own strength. I've learned not to depend on anyone but myself for my happiness and security. The betrayal hurt, yes, but it also pushed me to stop pretending everything was okay when it was. One thing I want to say to anyone reading this who might be going through something similar: don't ignore the signs. If something feels off, trust your instincts. Don't let fear or hope keep you from seeing the truth. It's better to face reality head-on than to live in denial. And if you do find out someone you love is cheating or betraying you, don't let shame or guilt swallow you whole. You're entitled to feel hurt, angry, and betrayed, but you're also entitled to walk away and rebuild your life. I've learned that healing isn't linear. Some days are worse than others. Some days I want to drown in the pain, and other days I feel a little stronger, but I know I will get through it. Each day is a step towards a new beginning, a life where I don't have to carry her betrayal like a weight around my neck. I'll never forget what happened, but I also refuse to be defined by it. Now I focus on myself. I go to my appointments, take care of my health, and surround myself with people who genuinely care about me. I've started to rebuild my confidence piece by piece. I realize that I don't need a person who would betray me to be happy. I only need to be true to myself. The love I lost was painful, but it also opened my eyes to what I deserve: honesty, loyalty, and respect. And I won't settle for less. So for anyone out there feeling broken, just know that you're not alone. You can survive this. You can come out stronger on the other side. It might take time, but eventually the pain subsides and makes room for hope and new beginnings. I may have lost someone I loved, but I found myself again. That's the real victory: reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my future.